Good afternoon, and welcome to a live chat on 2 Diabetes. My guests today are Dr. Jonathan Owenby and our very own lovely Trip Stoner. How are you this afternoon?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. So, how far away from the new stadium are you guys?
Here at this location, probably about 8 miles or so. It's just 75. But depending on traffic, because I can look out my window and see it right now, it could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
I can ride my bicycle there in less than 30.
Wow. So, does that mean that when the stadium gets up and operational next year that you'll be sneaking out of the office to go to afternoon baseball?
I love baseball anyway.
Yeah, I do too.
We go quite frequently anyway, so.
How about you, Dr. Owenby? Will you be?
Well, they haven't figured out all the traffic situations yet because mass transit hasn't gotten there. So they're building some extra lanes on the interstate, but if I'm traveling on a weekend from home, because I live in Cobb County, it will be fine. But from the office, it may be a problem.
So, 2 questions before we get started. First of all, I know, Dr. Owenby, that you went to Lee University. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you've got to tell me about the place that I hear for dining around Lee University, and that is called The Spot. Is that a place you're familiar with?
That must have happened after. I'm getting old, so that must have happened afterwards, after my time there. Well, actually, no. There is actually. I take that back. The Spot was there. I never went there though. So I guess I missed out on my college career by not going to the Spot.
Well, or maybe not.
Yeah.
So how about the baseball program at Lee University? Do you keep up with it?
Not recently. They were kind of starting to get good when I was there. So I graduated high school in '99 and was there till 2003. So, but they are going to NCAA shortly as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they are in NAIA right now. I do know they are going to go to Division III.
Right. And Trip, you've got to tell me about the Silver Skillet.
Silver Skillet?
Yeah. Is that a place around you?
No. Sorry. No. Sorry.
I'm 0 for 2 today.
You also got to realize Atlanta is also one of the top restaurant cities in the world. Like, we have more restaurants per capita than any other city in the world.
Oh, well. So this would be a great, Cobb County would be a great place to go hang out, I guess.
It is one of the top metro counties in the Atlanta area. It and Gwinnett and Fulton County have the highest population.
Awesome.
So there's 20 counties to Atlanta, so we go all the way to Alabama.
As well you should. So the reason we got you on today is because there was a very special event at the Georgia legislature not too many weeks ago, Type 1 Day, and I know that pages from around Georgia were selected to participate in Type 1 Day, and the kids went down. I hear that they had a great time while they were down there. Tell me about Type 1 Day and how it got started. Either one of you would be fine.
Well, it started actually at an appointment. We were both talking, and after the appointment, I went home, and my husband, who's here too, say hi, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
We got to talking, and we realized down at the state capitol that there is every day down there that you can imagine. There is AIDS Day, there is Red Dress Day, there's Cancer Day, there's anything you can imagine. There's Nurses Day. But there's never been a diabetes day down at our state capitol, and specifically not a Type 1 diabetes day. So we got to talking more about it, and things just kind of went on a roll from there. Dr. Owenby and I have actually talked about several things that we've percolated between the two of us. So my husband being a past state senator, I contacted some administrators, and they were able to, it took me about 9 months, they were able to finally give me a day, short notice. I think I had 23 days to put it together. So from there is where Dr. Owenby really stepped in. I'm not familiar with JDRF at that point in time, hardly at all. So he got me the contacts.
Yeah, because Bruce Bodie is one of the physicians in this group, and he's really big into research, and I helped with some of his research here at Atlanta Diabetes Associates. So we have several contacts, and actually one of the contacts I have actually helped me as far as advocating for a patient who's having issues with their insurance company last year, trying to get an insulin pump. So we had that inroad as well. So since she had her side and I had my side with JDRF, we kind of just meshed together and created a JDRF Day at the Capitol.
So how many kids participated?
You broke up on us. Sorry, Rick.
About how many kids participated?
We had 17 to participate. We had some that came in 4 hours away from Savannah, Georgia. From Macon to Augusta. We actually had one come in from Alabama. Shh. But they are more involved in the Georgia JDRF coalition than they are with Alabama's coalition. So, and then a lot of kids from the Atlanta area as well.
So, I know that when I was a kid, I was on page a couple of times. I'm sorry, I bet I'm breaking up again. I know when I was a kid, I was a page a couple of times, and I loved it. I had such great fun doing it. What kind of stuff did the pages do when they were at the Capitol?
Well, first of all, Georgia's legislator page program is set up that state senators only get 20 a year. 20 a year. And the House only gets 10 a year. So in order for us to get all the pages, we first had to approach the different senators and representatives and ask them to give up one of their slots for a specific day. This has never been done in the state legislature. There's never been a group of people to come down and page together, and especially in advocating in something like this. We were very, very lucky. Our lieutenant governor, when he heard what we were doing, gave up all 15 slots for us. So we were very grateful to Casey Cagle for that. But what they learned, and just as much as the representatives and senators learned, especially the page desk ladies, we had several that were quite high that day for some reason. I would have thought they would have been low with all the running around they were doing, but no, they were really high. So we had to take a lot of breaks to adjust insulin schedules. Matter of fact, one of the representatives came out right when their page was given a shot for insulin, and he actually got to witness how it was doing and everything. So I think it was a great experience for everybody involved. I am definitely looking forward to it next year and making it bigger and better for sure. The pages, I think, were a little taken aback about how legislation really works. It's not what everybody thinks it is, and until you see it in action, I don't think you really get a full understanding of how legislation works, especially in state government.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Owenby, how was it for you being down at the legislature?
It was an interesting experience because I had never experienced state government as well, seeing how many people can go into the state capitol and how many lobbyists there are for all these different groups coming in and bombarding these people every single day. And me as a physician being able to come down and actually talk to them about the frustrations I have as a physician every day taking care of type 1 diabetics. One of the things I did was talk in front of the Health and Human Services Committee about my frustrations as a physician in treating type 1 diabetics, especially like you've had this experience before where you just walk into the pharmacy and, oh, well, you know, the insulin you're on isn't covered anymore. Sorry, but, you know, she has to have her insulin. So unless she gets samples from me or pays out of pocket, she's not going to get it. Other things as far as pumps and supplies, having a pump but not using the meter that goes with the pump is kind of like, oh yeah, we'll approve this blood pressure monitor for you but not the cuff. So I think talking to them about those things hopefully opened their eyes to what it's like to have type 1.
I know that the issue was type 1 that particular day.
Mhm.
But what else did you see that was going on that enlightened you? Were there other pieces of legislation moving that day? Was there discussions you had with legislators that gave you a different spin on your thoughts before that day?
Oh,
You know what's going on.
Pretty mundane stuff.
It's pretty mundane stuff that was going on today. There was a piece of bill that was on the floor that delayed our the Community Health and Human Services Committee. I don't remember off the top of my head specifically that specific bill. Just to give an example, I'm dealing with a bill right now. I think its number is 1280. So, and that's just the House side. There's just as many on the Senate side. So I can't recall off the top of my head any piece of legislation.
Right.
Yeah, and nothing that the average public would even be interested in, to be honest with you, went on that day. Recently, I mean, there's only 2 more days in our state legislature. So the next, today was, now it's 1 more day if they've already convened. So, I mean, there's a lot of tax bills right now going on in our state legislature right now. So.
We are always happy in Indiana when our state legislature is not in session. We mark the day that they leave session as our state holiday.
It's called Sunny Die for a reason.
Dr. Ownby, what do you think the kids got out of being down there?
I think they got a great experience, actually, to just witness the state government in action. All of them said they had a great time. So I think it's beneficial, you know, for them to see how the government worked as well.
So let me turn and ask a couple of things about healthcare in Georgia, specifically diabetes healthcare. Are most people that you encounter in your practice, are they seasoned? Do you see a lot of new people who are coming into your practice? What's the general flow of your practice?
So in our practice in general, probably about 40–50% are the Medicare population, and then the rest of the folks either have private insurance or self-pay. Since I'm one of the newer folks in the practice, I do see a lot of new patients as well. So I'm getting a big mix of people who've been in the practice for several years, and then news as well, who are completely kind of floored with the technology that's out there for the treatment of type 1 diabetes.
So I know that I think you said you graduated from high school in 2003. So I know after, was it 4? I'm sorry.
No, it was college, 2003. I graduated.
I'm sorry. So as a new physician, you know, my kid graduated from college in 2004, so
it's okay. I have a young
those days all run together for me. So as a relatively new physician in your practice, are you seeing a lot of kids?
So one of my partners will see kids. I usually will see folks from the age of 14 up as far as type 1 goes. So as far as that population, as far as those kids go, it probably makes up only about 10% of my practice. I usually see young adults.
I see.
In their office, next door is a pediatric endocrinologist group.
I see.
So this is really more geared toward those older than 12. I imagine most of your population is over 18.
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting in Georgia is our Peach Care system, which is I don't know how to describe Peachtree. I'm gonna let Doug describe our Peach Care.
Unfortunately, I have it bad.
There we go.
Peach Care is basically the federal. It's a federal program that's provided specifically for healthcare for children. It's called, in other words, called SCHIP is what it's called.
Right.
We call it Peach Care, and so it's for those families who, you know, earn too much money to be on Medicaid, but then themselves cannot afford health care for their children. So that's what Peach Care is geared for, those children who fall in between.
And what's neat about our Peach Care system is this year's the first year that they will approve Dexcom for those under 20. But after they turn 20, they lose it. Kind of like when I turn 65, I lose Dexcom. Yeah, yay me.
Dr. Ownby, you said you've got about 40% of your population is Medicare.
Right.
And obviously something that's very important to our community is CGM for Medicare.
Exactly.
Do you have any thoughts about that? Do you feel that there are advantages that the Medicare system is not seeing that the rest of us in our community are seeing?
Oh, sure, obviously. I mean,
I'm sorry. It's like, do you have an hour, Rick? Because Dr. Ownby will go off on this.
I mean, the big thing is, like, a patient recently sued Medicare and won. And the reason was she was on regular insurance, was on CGM, and she had hypoglycemia unawareness, so she didn't feel her blood sugar but went low. So she was forced off of CGM when she switched to Medicare, and promptly 2 weeks after being put on Medicare, she had a seizure because she could not have her monitor. She requested her monitor from Medicare. It was deemed medically unnecessary. Eventually, her husband had to film her having a seizure, and that was used as evidence in her lawsuit. The big thing is, yeah, CGMs are expensive. And Medicare thinks of it as something that, you probably can't react, or, doctors can't look and make adjustments to pumps or to your insulin dosing, but that's completely bogus. We make adjustments on insulin dosing all the time based on CGM. Mm-hmm. It'll hurt you if you're starting to go too low. And the big thing that they don't realize is it's penny wise and pound foolish. I mean, you're not paying for CGM, but you're going to pay for the $10,000 hospital bill you get from your hypoglycemic event. And that's if you just get admitted to a regular floor. If you get intensive care unit, anoxic brain injury, you're in the hospital for months on end. What's the benefit? I mean, if you prevent one of those from happening, you're going to get your return on investment for giving everyone CGM.
Hmm. Well, as I said, this is a hot button issue in our community. It's my personal passion.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll figure out a way to get it approved. It just makes too much sense to not get it approved, I think.
Right, especially as the next generation of pumps come out that will be artificial pancreas technology, where it's going to actually adjust the basal rates based on the real-time CGM data. I mean, they've got to cover it at that point because one of the things that they're saying is you can't go on the readings on the CGM to make insulin adjustments.
And that's one reason why it's such a big deal that our Peach Care system has approved CGMs. That's showing you that the tide is turning. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted the Type 1 Day at our state capitol. I feel like there's so many federal issues that we need to address, but sometimes the best way to do that is to start at your state level government. 3/4 of Georgia legislators that are down at our national capital came from our state legislators. So if we can start educating them now about what CGMs are about type 1 diabetes, about how we fight with insurance, then when they get to the national, whenever JDRF or any other advocacy group walks into their office, they already have an inkling of what's going on in our world. And I think that's a real important step in the right direction. Sometimes I think we do things backwards. We're going from the top down, which most of the time is the way to work things. But I think in this case, it's just as important to work from the bottom up. And so I'm trying to, at least do that within my own state, and I'm hoping other states will follow suit. I found out that Oklahoma just recently had their 3rd Type 1 Day at state capitol, and I didn't even know any states had done it. When I had researched it, I couldn't find any other state that had such a program. So I'm real excited to hear there's at least 2 of us doing it, and I'm hoping some others will come out of the woodwork or at least contact us and ask how can we do it in our state.
Trip, what do you see as other issues that, in particular, a state legislature, the Georgia state legislature, should be educated on about diabetes?
I'm actually hoping maybe next year, with this being bigger, that maybe I can convince one of our state lawmakers to introduce Reagan's Law that basically forces everybody to test for type 1 diabetes that present in a hospital or doctor setting with flu-like symptoms. I know recently we did lose a small child to type 1 diabetes that the doctors just failed to test for, and they all thought it was flu. And I do think that is an issue. We don't hear about it as much now, but it's still happening, and that's, it's, while type 1 diabetes is a chronic lifelong disease, it's certainly not something you should die for before you're even diagnosed with it, not in a first world country.
Right. I know that in Indiana, we were just successful this year in getting a bill to allow physicians to appeal requirements for step therapy, which basically doesn't make a person go off the pump to go back to step 1 if they change insurance. You have to, step therapy means you prove one treatment's not working before you can go to the next. And we're facing an awful lot of folks who, when they switch insurance for some reason, they have to go back to step 1. It's particularly important in our type 2 community because some of the more expensive drugs are the end drug, and so insurance companies will force them to go back to metformin and reprove through the process, and it's a very difficult law.
I actually have experienced that, Rick, with my oldest daughter who takes Zofenex instead of albuterol. She has heart palpitations and other heart issues on albuterol. They want her to go off of the Zofenex, go back to the albuterol to prove to them that she has heart issues on them. And I'm just like, no, I don't think so.
Well,
had a patient who was on Lyrica for neuropathic pain, had gabapentin and amitriptyline, which are both not FDA approved. That's off-label use for type 2 neuropathy. And the insurance company forced my patient, who was well controlled on Lyrica, to go back on step therapy because he had not tried it in 6 months. So especially for that with neuropathic pain, the problem is not only are you taking that medicine that's controlling their pain away, but you're intentionally inflicting harm on these people to go back to gabapentin or amitriptyline that hasn't been proven. So why would you take someone off a medicine that is proven to work just to cause pain when you know about 50 to 60% of the time it's not going to work?
Well, that's a big bill in the Midwest right now. I know it's passed Illinois and Indiana. It's at the Ohio legislature. And I know that a lot of different groups lobby on behalf of doctor procedures to override step therapy. ADA is one of those groups. So if it's not a law in Georgia now, perhaps next session.
If you'll send me a copy of it, I'll check it out and see where it is. I'm actually real good friends with something called ARC here in Atlanta. Is an organization that would also hook up and fight for that piece of legislation as well.
Dr. Umby, do you see other things in your practice that the state legislature could assist with?
Well, the big thing is the step therapy issue because I prescribe a medicine and sometimes I don't know, like the pharmacy either doesn't notify me or the insurance company doesn't notify me for weeks, for months sometimes that, oh yeah, we're going to deny this, you need to try something else first. And it's a daily occurrence for me. I mean, honestly, I feel like I need to bill the insurance company for my time that I spend on their forms because it's getting worse as the years go on. It used to be, has the patient tried this before? Okay, well, okay, you can go back on this drug. Now it's, has the patient tried this medicine before? how long ago was it, for how long did they do, what did their blood sugars do while they were on that medicine. So it's getting more detailed, and if I don't fill out every single detail, there is a reason for them to not deny the claim.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely I think step therapy would be a great help as far as getting the care that I want my patients to receive.
Right. So, Tripp, I know that your husband is a city council person and a former state legislator, but where did you learn to lobby at?
I officially am not a lobbyist. Let's make that clear.
I'm sorry. Where did you learn to persuade at?
Probably before I met him in high school. I debated, so you know, I'm actually not a very political person, believe it or not. It's just something I've kind of been thrown into and have learned to tread lightly and pretty passionate about some things. So.
Yeah. So I know that you attended Master Lab last year, or 2 years ago, I think. Can you tell us about the experience of attending Master Lab? Not necessarily about lobbying, but about being in Florida with other type 1s?
Well, Rick, you also got to remember I was pretty much a diabetic closet person. Not many people knew I had diabetes 3 years ago. And then I was actually in this process with his nurse practitioner when she finally looked at me and said, "You've got to go on, and fighting it tooth and nail." I actually logged onto the internet and found True Diabetes, and that's the reason why I pump today. But in that process, I didn't even know the DOC existed. Like, I didn't even know another type 1 diabetic at that time. And, you know, I had met some here and there, but I have never like even talked to another one really in a long-term position. For some reason, I just on a whim decided to go to Orlando to that Master Lab class 2 years ago. The main thing it did was introduce me to the DOC and really what it was about. And I can remember having a long conversation with Scott Johnson, as a matter of fact, about some of the issues that I was seeing at a state level and a national level, and how there really wasn't a strong presence in either place doing anything about legislation as far as what we need as a community. It was really an eye-opening experience. I would highly suggest everybody going. I might even talk this guy going with me next year.
Well, maybe that'll work out. We would love to have you.
I think he needs a vacation in Florida.
Yeah.
Let's get his practice paper.
Yeah.
Dr. Omby, let me point out that it's in the middle of July, so that may curb your desire to go to Florida. I don't know.
Well, I guess if it's for a good cause, I'll consider
it. You don't make it outside, by the way. There's too much quality.
Now, I've done that. I've went to endocrine conference in Houston, Texas, in the middle of the summer before, so I kind of know what to expect.
So that's where I found out I had type 1 was at Disney World. So it's not my favorite place in the world. You know how they say that it's the world's happiest place? Not necessarily. There are times when it's not.
That's so funny, because my first trip to Disney World, I had some type of 48 stomach bug that was awful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. Did you hang out at the men's room or the drink stand all day?
No. My second trip, I had a major kidney infection. Doug remembers that one.
Yes.
I hit every bathroom in Disney World that trip.
We know where all the bathrooms are.
You know, my dad said, this was way back a long time ago, but I was 16 and my dad said, "What are you doing, writing a travel book about men's rooms and drink stands?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Dude, you gotta try a ride." I didn't even get to see Abraham Lincoln do his speech. The whole president's. So, Um, what do you think that the population of your practice, what do you think that they can learn from kids that have type 1?
Rick,
You went out.
You went out. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. What would you think that the adult population of your practice could learn about kids with type 1?
Well, actually, hopefully they could probably teach each other a few things. The kids are probably going to be more involved as far as the technology and the improvements as far as CGM and integration with pumps go, whereas some of my adults are more opposed to change. But most of our kids can be willy-nilly sometimes and not really take care or check as often. I think the adults could teach them a little bit more about self-control and monitoring.
Sure. It was a group of high school kids that talked me into wearing a pump
Right.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I met with them and they all wore pumps, some hadn't used a syringe in years, and I was still using one. I left the meeting and went to the car, called my doctor, and said, I want a pump. And 3 weeks later, I had one. So it was the kids that talked me into it.
Yeah.
And I, at the time, I was a 28-year person with diabetes.
Yeah.
So, sometimes we are opposed to change. Okay. Well, do either of you have anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I don't think so. I think I got out most of what, especially step therapy. If you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to bring it up. So that's kind of one of the big hot button issues for me.
Well, it's a big issue here. It's a big issue in our patient communities, not just diabetes, but across many patient communities, MS, rheumatoid arthritis in particular, cancer. There are big patient communities that are very invested in that piece of legislation, which the governor signed yesterday.
Great.
That's awesome. I'm a little slightly jelly here.
Well, we'll see how far it goes. There's two sides. There's two sides to every coin, and sometimes you got to be careful of what you ask for.
That is true.
So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But it is a big issue in the Midwest, and it's as I said, it's a big issue in many patient communities. Well, thank you very much. My guests today have been Trip Stoner, the ever lovely Trip Stoner, and Dr. Jonathan Owenby. And I'm Rick Phillips. We appreciate everybody joining us today and hope to see you next time.